What do I mean when I say you're not real and that you don't exist and the world does not exist? Basically, this is not philosophy. We're not arguing Advaita philosophy versus Buddhist philosophy of emptiness, and we're not talking about the philosophies of the past, and we're not talking about Bishop Berkeley and his idealism versus Kant's idealism versus the naive realism of Locke. And I'm talking about my experience. And my experience is that at one point in my life, when taking a shower, I looked inside, as I had hundreds of times before, thousands of times before, doing self-inquiry to find the I. What am I? Who am I? The self-inquiry that Ramana talks about, and Nisargadatta talks about, and Robert talks about, and that I talk about. And that day when I looked inside, I saw nothing. There was just a vast emptiness with no center, no I. The word I had no thing that it pointed to. There was only emptiness. And I recognized my true nature as emptiness. And I also recognized that the I had never existed. It was just a thought form. And if you take a look at thoughts, and you can actually look at thoughts, you can actually see thoughts, and they have a cloud-like existence. They can be perceived as clouds that when you get close to them actually form objects. It's a subject for another talk. But none of these thoughts are yours. They were here when you were born. They were added on to you. It's, you might say, the background knowledge of the human race and the background knowledge that you've gotten since you were very small. All of this accumulated knowledge forms your world. And when you see that the I does not exist, and that you see that the I was merely a thought form, then you see that all other thoughts connected to the I thought, the network of thinking, has that same insubstantial existence as the I. It's seen as a cloud that's moving through your perception, through the emptiness. I don't exist, and all the words that make up the external world don't exist. There only becomes oneness. There's no separation between inwards and outwards. It's all one vast emptiness everywhere. And in this vast emptiness, the thoughts come through, and the thoughts form the external world. They also form your internal world, your fantasy process, your dreams, your thinking. And all of this disappears in one momentary enlightening experience. And you see there's only emptiness and there's only thinking. And the thinking has given existence or apparent existence to world objects and to yourself. None of it is real. The only thing that is real is your emptiness. And you can feel it around you. It's the consciousness, the totality of consciousness. And the objects come and go, and thoughts come and go. And the only reality is the emptiness which stays, which contains all, which is inner and outer, which has itself a different kind of existence. But as your inner vision matures, at some point you see this too is not true. That the totality of consciousness is something that comes to you unsought. The waking mind comes to you unsought, with its objects, with its emptiness, with its oneness, with its totality. It comes to you and you are not touched by it. So too does dream. So too does deep sleep. They come to you and they leave you. Then you are untouched because you are beyond, totally beyond the world, totally beyond the waking mind, totally beyond sleep mind, totally beyond the dream mind. You are a mere witness. Now, not a witness in the sense of being an object, but Witness in the sense that it is happening to you. And all else can be seen or interpreted as objects, but in fact, that dichotomy is not helpful in understanding the experience. Spiritual teachers aren't using words to convince you of a philosophy, but to try to share with you their own inner experience of the universe and of themselves. The active clarification of terms like real or unreal, of independent origination or dependent origination, all of this is just philosophy. You can clarify terms endlessly and get nowhere, as they have been doing in philosophy for hundreds and thousands of years. Philosophy does not make you wiser. Philosophy makes you more facile at the use of words and concepts so they fit together and you become more and more subtle and more lost in thinking and distinctions and drama. What I'm trying to do is show you a way that's entirely beyond the drama of words and concepts, of philosophies and of distinctions and of real and unreal, to show you a direct perception of a different way of being, one where there's no inner and no outer, one where you do not exist and the world does not exist, and only consciousness exists. And after a while you see even consciousness doesn't exist. It has a different quality from you, who is unchanging, who is the subject. But once again, these are just words I'm saying, and talking about the difference between subjects and objects creates a false duality. In fact, all of these distinctions have to go. And you have to experience the world totally without any knowledge whatsoever, any understanding whatsoever. Totally helpless, totally open. And this is something that can't be taught in words. It has to be done by self-investigation, taking a look at who you are, looking inside of yourself and feeling that sense of I, and following that sense of I until it either appears or disappears. And then what happens? Then what happens to all the other thoughts? What happens to all the other ideas? All of this has to be followed and attended to and attained until you understand completely your inner experience, from alpha to beta to gamma to the whole thing, until you get rid of the whole thing and you shed the whole thing and you see that everything you've known until you've done self-inquiry correctly is wrong. It's a concept that you've gotten from somebody else. I'm speaking to those few of you out there who have always felt that there was something wrong with the world. And you've listened to philosophy, you've listened to teachers, and it doesn't make sense. The world doesn't make sense. The way people live doesn't make sense. The materialism doesn't make sense. The killing doesn't make sense. You know something's desperately wrong and you don't know what it is, and you keep looking to try to find the real substance, the reality that would all make it seem to make sense. But you can't find it in words. You can't find it in politicians' words and philosophers' words and Buddha's words or Shankara's words. You have to look within and find it within yourself. And that's what I'm trying to teach, and that's what Robert tries to teach, and that's what Romana always taught. Self-inquiry. Looking into your sense of I. Following it all the way. Watch the world disappear. Watch you disappear. Watch the I disappear. And what is the final arising? What is the final understanding? When you go beyond any understanding whatsoever. This is when you're beginning to approach absolute truth, which is no truth whatsoever, and anything I say would only be some added-on experience for you rather than showing the way to your own experience of nothingness, showing your way out to complete freedom for yourself. So this is my answer to Peter and to other people who are trying to gain spiritual knowledge by reading books in understanding Advaita philosophy and Buddhist philosophy, rather than practicing self-inquiry and finding out for yourself what is truth. Thank you.